For the last Sunday in October, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, we are just more than a week away from the mayor's race in Atlanta. In Fulton County, there is tax chaos, and a court rules against those dreamers on school tuition. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Sunday. We have so much to talk about and so little time, so we won't waste a lot of it. We're going to try and get as much detail on the mayor's race in Atlanta as we can in this first block. And I think what we want to try to do is convey the facts on the ground as we know them. And I would begin with you, Jeff. The last of the major debates took place last weekend. It started slow, in my opinion, slowly, and then Vincent Fort reached in his pocket, and from then on it was all fun. This is not a tax lien on you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was an interesting debate. I don't know if it changed a lot of minds. There still seems to be a large contingent of undecideds in this race. And for it to be as late as it is in the campaign, it's very interesting. And the only thing that I can attribute it to is a large number of candidates. A large number of candidates who really don't differ all that much on the issues, on the fundamental issues.
A large number of qualified candidates.
Right.
A large number of qualified candidates, and so you can have a debate like you had on another station here a week or so ago, and really not move the needle all that much. And I don't think that it really did move the needle all that much. I thought that Keisha Lance Bottoms, despite being under attack from a number of candidates, was poised and responded well. I think that she does great when she's being attacked.
Well, sure she does. But wait a minute. She is the leader of the, let's say, the black part of the race. In the white part of the race, you have Mary Norwood.
Are you saying that this race is racially polarized?
For ease of discussion.
For ease of discussion.
Mary Norwood sits in the lead over here.
Right.
And Keisha Lance Bottoms has a slight lead over here. So it was natural the others attacked her. Alexis, do you think that it bothers voters that Keisha Lance Bottoms did not pay her property taxes some years back and her water bills, and that she was double dipping, having a job on the city council and being the recreation director? Do you think any of that sticks?
I'm not sure that it does, but I think people are worried when public officials don't pay taxes. But I think she had a really good explanation for the water part anyway, that it was just outrageously high and she was contesting it. And you know, it's been a problem for many people in Atlanta.
So is everybody, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's core, and then, you know, that's why she took the recreation job, so she could pay her property taxes. I mean, she needed money. So you know, and they're attacking her again because she's, you know, like you say, in the front.
Yeah, she's right there. They've got to go after Keisha Lance Bottoms. Now, Phil, Mary Norwood seems pretty much above the fray so far. Her commercials are feel good. I mean, I think she is holding her lead.
Well, going back to the debate, I think Mary Norwood did very well, and I think that rightly so. The issue was the ongoing federal probe into City Hall bribery and contracting. And I think Mary made a great shot at the other candidate, Peter Ammon, when she said, I wasn't in City Hall in 2011 and 12, and you were. And I think that hurt Ammon. He's trying to downplay the fact that when he was COO that he claims he saw nothing. Well, that makes him look pretty bad, and I think his support is eroding. I think it was dramatic. You pointed out at the beginning what Senator Fort said about the Bottoms tax problems, and I think that does hurt.
Of course, she also pointed out, I think it was she, who pointed out that Senator Ford himself.
Well, that's right.
Yes, and she's having his state salary garnished.
She took the lead there, but one of the questions,
but I think that hurt both of them.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, a lot of candidates have actually shown, you know, some honesty and transparency by saying, yes, I've had some financial problems in the past, and I've fixed them. And we've seen this among Democrats and among Republicans. I think the difference here was she was saying, you took an oath, Senator Ford, that you did not owe taxes.
Right.
And that was the point.
I think that hurt Ford.
And it hurt Ford. And he said, well, you had financial problems too. Okay, we all do. But the point was that he'd taken an oath. And he had some leans at the time that the oath was.
But when you both, you know, PR, Jeff, when you both have to be explaining something for 1 or 2 minutes,
and you don't have a lot of, and you don't have. We have that experience right here on the gang, don't we?
I think it's more troubling for me, who doesn't vote in Atlanta. It was more troubling for me the amount of contributions Keisha Lance Bottoms has received from airport contractors. That looks like a who's who of the big hitters and the contested contracts.
That's a huge problem. As we taped Friday, the Atlanta paper delved into that. It goes back again to cronyism and pay for play that has been the dark side of the Kasim Reed administration.
It's so unfair. It's almost as if you're an airport contractor, by definition, you are presumed guilty, or that your First Amendment rights to contribute to a political campaign are somehow compromised. And I don't believe that that's the case at all. I think that they should have the same right as any other business person. I am very aware of the history of the contracting at the airport. I'm also aware that this is the most efficiently run airport probably in the world.
Except that the U.S. Attorney says corruption is prolific.
And the U.S. Attorney has offered us absolutely no evidence of that
statement. There's $1 million that we still haven't found out.
No, they've offered us nothing. We have news reporters saying that 2 people pleaded guilty to bribery, which is fundamentally untrue.
Have you heard of
they
the procurement
pleaded
officer?
guilty
to attempted.
Thank you. To a conspiracy to commit a bribe. They haven't committed a bribe, nor has the U.S. Attorney charged anyone with accepting a bribe.
This isn't the time for that
You all are getting so far ahead of the facts.
You're forgetting the procurement officer who was over all the contracts under Mayor Reed, who admitted he took bribes from a vendor.
And this is these issues are a problem for Kasim Reed, Keisha Lance Bottoms, Peter Amon, Caesar Mitchell, the city council president. I believe that corruption issue is why there are so many undecided in the race, Jeff.
I think that's
it's
a good point.
They just don't know.
I think it's because you just have an awful lot of candidates out there, and at the end of the day, you're right. Where you started, Dick, the overwhelming majority of white voters are going to select a white candidate. And it's true on the African American side as well. Those numbers are going to be as high as 70 to 80%. And so it's just a matter, as so much else in this city, it is all race-based, and it's just a matter of getting your folks out on the north side and the south side.
We got to get out of this. We'll talk about other races around the area later in the broadcast, but I want to end the mayor's race by noting that, because Jeff, did you work on the last transportation bond issue, Jeff?
I did not.
Okay, well, what a deal that is. They raised, what, a couple of $1 million or something? And now, a year later, they're giving money to candidates for mayor?
It was a committee.
It was a committee.
Money.
Yeah.
It's a
committee of good citizens.
It was dedicated to the transportation referendum. And the money was shifted to cronies of Mayor Reed.
No, wait a minute.
Yes,
we're talking about $18,000 out of some 600,000
so that makes it okay?
Does it make it okay? Well, first of all, it makes it okay to the extent that state law allows for this kind of organization. Yes, it does.
That's just one lawyer's
to contribute
opinion.
to a nonprofit. All you have to do is read the law. And you know how laws are written in our state, Phil. They do things very intentionally.
Well, you know, you've got the lawyers.
That law is there for good reason.
You've got the lawyers, as you know, going back and forth on it.
It's not what the money was intended for.
That's
Let's
right.
put it that
Even
way.
Jeff will admit that.
It was intended to pass the transportation bond vote, not to line the pockets of cronies of Kasim Reed from his attorney, Bob Highsmith.
Wait a minute. They're acting. They're sitting, if I'm not mistaken, city council members. So this isn't. This hasn't influenced the mayor's race at all.
We got to get out. When we come back, we've got some real chaos in Fulton County, and we're going to explain it to you. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You could argue that the largest local and state story of the last week was the busting up of an alleged plot by 2 students at Etowah High School to damage the school, use explosives, had a hit list of people they wanted to shoot. We acknowledge that for the record, but there's no public policy question here, so I don't think there's any point in getting into it. It's a sad story, and it's scary. A story we can get into that does have public policy implications is the Fulton County Tax Digest. You'll recall that there was a digest, and there was a taxpayer outcry because scores of people actually, almost 40% of the people had property tax increases of more than 100%.
Right.
So they went back to the drawing board. They settled on using the 2016 valuations. And now the state, at this late hour, has rejected the digest as faulty and not within the law. That means government doesn't have any money.
And by the way, I have to commend Dick Williams, because you had called that several months ago. You had thought that the Fulton County Commission was, and the assessors were going on a very faulty interpretation of the state law.
Well, I guess so.
And I guess you were right.
But just to explain the implications of this, cities, all the cities in the county are on an annual calendar. They're expecting to have money in hand to meet their budgets for 2018.
In January.
Already the Atlanta School Board is borrowing money with tax anticipation notes that cost money. You pay interest because they see that money isn't coming to them. The city of Atlanta perhaps has the reserves to begin the year with spending. I know some of the newer cities in the north do too, but you're hearing now other cities saying, wait a minute, if we don't have any money, we can't pay anybody.
Right.
This is terrible government. It's the idea.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, is it really? Because I mean, let's look at the thought behind it. I mean, the folks in Fulton County were being responsive to citizens. There was an outcry because of the higher assessments, and they responded by freezing those assessments. What everybody expected for politicians to do.
It's October 29th.
And now, exactly right. And the Revenue Department has had this information for a good time. So a part of this has got to be put on their plate, that they waited so long to issue this ruling.
Actually,
but as Phil and I have said from the start, they had a mechanism, and they failed to use it. And that's the millage rate. So when these assessments came out, Fulton County always had the authority to simply adjust the milling rate, to roll back the millage rate, and they didn't do it.
Well, you're right there.
I do agree that the Revenue Department could have announced this a lot earlier.
Well, actually, though, they didn't get the digest till a week or so ago.
Right, and they also saw, which we're not surprised, many mistakes that caused this in the first place by the assessors in Fulton County.
And apparently the state took a negative look at the county's claim that they could rely on an 1880s law of some kind that we've been told about. Now, the similar deal in the city. Let's talk about this. City Council suddenly finds itself voting on an increase in liquor license fees, bar licenses and the like, up to, I guess they were tripling the rates from $500 to $1,500 and so forth. Right. I can't imagine little bars and restaurants can handle that kind of an increase. What kind of deal was that? Where did that come from? Whose numbers?
This came out of nowhere. These numbers came from City Hall. The mayor's representatives were trying to defend this. The head of the Georgia Restaurant Association, Karen Bremer, said, "Where did this come from? No one alerted us."
It's a way to generate revenue without raising taxes.
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't go through the proper vetting process, and finally, and it was almost like an Inspector Clouseau-like investigation. The City Hall said, "Oh wait, we were wrong. Our numbers are wrong. Let's pull this back." It was a complete incompetent introduction of this resolution.
Why would you want to raise bar licenses just before an election?
It was incompetence.
Who was thinking about that?
Well, that's why they pulled it. That's why they pulled it. It was an embarrassment.
In DeKalb County, a more straightforward event, the county commission voted 5-1, Jeff, to remove the Confederate obelisk from the square in Decatur.
The memorial obelisk. That memorial is a very important word.
Memorial to the succession.
Well, they're not even sure who owns it, but the city says the county does. The county says, I guess we do. But we can't do it because of that state law that prohibits the moving of monuments and so forth.
Let me just make a point, too. You know, the United States has recognized Confederate soldiers also as federal veterans. They're on the same status as the Union veterans. And so I think everyone ought to be able to honor their ancestors. And it goes down to that. We can talk about the Civil War another day and slavery another day. But I think when you have a memorial, that's a little different. And now if you want to put a sign of historical context, we could argue about that. But stop tearing down memorials.
Well, you have to tear it down. All you have to do is move it. Put it in a museum.
Well, I think that's terrible.
And also because public funds are used to finance those things, public funds by people who were discriminated against and not able to participate.
These
These
are
are
memorials to the
dedicated by
dead.
veterans.
These are memorials to
There's
the
no
dead. They're
government
not.
money in
This
this.
Yeah,
is
and if,
glamorizing.
if the people of Decatur don't want a
I'm
memorial
talking about the statues in
for
general.
in the square,
Well, then they're going
they
to try
should be
to
able
change the
get
state
rid of
law.
it.
A couple of
And
other
they should
things.
change the state law, and that's
Not going to happen.
Decatur isn't the only place that
Right.
wants to do that. Wants to see a change in that state law, and it very well might happen. It may give
Well, that's-
localities the discretion
That's
to
the
do so.
that's the trendy liberalism of the day. They want to tear down statues
destroy
of
history.
Not
They
tear
want to
down.
ignore
They
history.
belong in a museum, and they belong in put in
It's
place
part
in
of our
context.
history.
And
Part of our
It's part of our
history.
It is-
history. You can't ignore
yes,
it.
I'm not ignoring it. I'm just saying put it in context and relieve the people who don't appreciate having
can
that
argue
in their
all day
face.
long.
They were
in
traitors to our
context.
nation.
Oh,
they
that's
did
wrong.
less than take. They
No.
did far more than take a knee.
No, you know
right?
what?
And you're fighting the people who are taking a knee.
You
These
bet.
people
Fire them.
killed to destroy the United States of America,
To
and
me-
you want to keep their symbols
Oh,
all
I
over
don't want to.
all
I
over the
don't.
place.
That's ridiculous,
Okay.
Jeff. Now the North won. Let's point that out. The
North
won,
won.
and you know the North. The North
sound like
said.
it's a
Let me
different
finish
country.
my point. The
Please.
North said we're going to have reconciliation. We are sending back with honor the battle flags of the South, and we want reconciliation of the Union. And you forget that. Let's have tolerance
I don't
here.
forget that. I don't
Tolerance
forget
used
that.
to be the liberal
I do not
watchword.
forget that because for another 100 years
Gotta
after
get
the
out.
Civil War, we had Jim Crow, thank you very much, in which most of those statues were placed to intimidate black people from participating
Well, I
in
don't think the one in
public
Decatur
square.
was. I don't think so. based on the
Memorials to
timing
the
of it.
dead are
That may
different.
be- yeah.
I don't know. All right, we got to get out. But we're not doing well at getting to all this stuff. Let me just take a deep breath and regroup, and we'll come back with things in no particular order.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
As we said at the outset, the Georgia Court of Appeals this week overturned a Superior Court ruling and said that Dreamers, the children, the limbo children of illegal immigrants, can't receive in-state tuition to the state's colleges and universities. Didn't seem to be much argument about that.
Terrible ruling. Terrible ruling.
Well, no.
Law's the law.
No, it's the law.
No.
These folks are still here illegally, and so if you want to follow
But
the letter
under-
of the law, now Congress can address that.
Then they certainly need
Yeah.
to.
Well, okay, but
they
that's a
won't.
different story. The
They
court ruled correctly.
No, I don't think that the court ruled correctly. This matter is going to go again before the state Supreme Court, and these folks should be able to get some sort of redress. I mean, these are students
Okay.
who have lived here all of their lives, who've gone to public schools,
No.
Couple of things.
done so right without charge.
So you
going
want
go into public schools.
Jeff, you
I wanna
want to
change
get
the subject
They live
is what
here.
I
They
wanna
are
do.
residents. They live here.
I
as
want to ask
residents,
Jeff
and they
one
should
quick
get in-state
question. A quick
tuition.
question. So let me get this straight. An illegal can get in-state tuition, but
If an illegal lives
citizens,
here,
but
yes.
citizens from Alabama and all of our neighboring states have to pay out-of-state. That is so
Absolutely.
unfair. That's
Yeah, because
outrageous.
they have their own
Absolutely.
state institutions
That's
to go
outrageous.
to.
Yeah.
That, it is outrageous, and they should be allowed to have in-state tuition. because
No,
it's,
it's
the right
just
thing
not
to do.
right.
It's a repeat
It's a
of
problem that's
history.
got to be fixed, but this
No.
isn't the way to do it. Let me say
Neither is
this.
keeping them uneducated.
In the context of the race for governor, I think Brian Kemp, the Secretary of State, took a shot this week. And he's out there campaigning for governor, a Republican nomination, and yet the Center for Georgia Elections at Kennesaw State erased the hard drive
Crazy.
that's the subject of a lawsuit.
Explain that, Mr. Kemp.
Yes,
and
he
I
needs
don't-
some explaining to do.
I don't think that helps him. He attacked the people
Well,
at Kennesaw, but
unfortunately, the Secretary of State's office, and I thought this was a crazy setup when I found out about it, didn't control these rogue people over at KSU. They were, and you're right, we deserve answers to what happened here. I think Brian Kemp was as surprised as everybody else.
And that's bad, too.
And they're going to shut down, by the way, they're going to rightly shut down that center at KSU.
You know, Brian Kemp has got so many issues to deal with. He had his own Equifax issue a year or two ago. He has this one and so many other things.
You're talking
that
so
have
many
happened
lawsuits,
nationwide.
and
Yes,
in the eyes
exactly
of
right.
some conservatives, the lawsuit is badly defended. So he's
Right.
he's got a problem.
He's not looking really good right now.
The governor's spokesman, not spokesman, the governor's chief of staff, Chris Riley, this week set out a little warning for the legislature, saying that he doesn't think that bringing religious freedom legislation is a good thing if the state wants to be serious about Amazon and all.
Well, it really wasn't to the legislature. He was talking to the GOP gubernatorial candidates.
As well he should.
Who all have said that they're in favor of some form, and that's the key, some
Yeah,
form of
please.
religious liberty,
Well, no, they're
like the
all-
Pastors Protection Act, which was bipartisanly approved even though it collapsed. So You know, he has a right to say that, but I think that in a Republican primary, you're going to see all sorts of...
Yeah, exactly. Now,
but the question is whether or not you're going to be able to be taken seriously, the state of Georgia, when it comes to these kinds of mega developments. We're talking about 50,000 jobs, $5 billion, and whether or not it comes here because we've got people who are running as hard and fast as they can to the right, to the far right, on religious liberty and other social issues that really don't need to be addressed at all.
Why is
We're going to lose out. We're going to lose out. And I think that that's what Chris Riley was saying. I think that that's what Governor Deal has been saying when he's vetoed similar legislation in the past.
Well, that's what they have said. But why is it, Jeff, that over 12 states have religious liberty legislation and they're very dynamic and economically viable? I mean,
Bill Clinton made it federal law in 1993.
So that's the debate.
And so why do we need to do it again?
Thank you.
Well, it'd be nice if it was. It would be nice if it's uniform at the federal level. It's not uniform.
All right. Last thing, we got just a couple of minutes left, but I do want to talk about this oddity of the Fulton Commission chairman's race being on the ballot because it's a special election in the state's largest county, and it's allegedly nonpartisan. And there are three candidates: Rob Pitts, the longtime commissioner, Gabe Sterling, a Sandy Springs city councilman, and Keisha Waits, a Democratic state legislator. Rob Pitts has been around a long time. I think it's going to be hard to beat a guy who's been on a ballot for so many years. But Gabe Sterling represents that newer Republican part of Fulton County. It's kind of the old thing. Can one overturn the other?
I think there will be a runoff if I had to look in the crystal ball. In fact, there's a hot Senate District 6 race in part of Sandy Springs where I live.
That's right.
And that's going to turn out Republicans who are going to vote presumably for Gabe Sterling. It could be a runoff between Pitts and Sterling.
It could be.
To be a runoff, Keisha Waits has got to get a lot of votes.
Right.
Right.
And I'm not confident that she will. So.
You know, with just the three of them, and with Rob's name recognition, it is possible that we wouldn't see a runoff.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
It'll be close.
It's impossible.
Yeah. All right.
I agree.
When we come back, we will tease you, intrigue you, make you happy, make you angry with winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And I've got one that we can all agree upon, and that would be the Atlanta United, eliminated from the playoffs in their opening game against the Minnesota team. But what a soccer match. Decided on penalty kicks, attendance records for the league, and they're talking about how Arthur Blank and Atlanta United have changed pro soccer in the United States.
Oh, I don't think that there's any question about it. When you get those kinds of crowds out there, 70, 75,000 people, it's pretty amazing.
All right, Phil, what do you have?
Well, we're all agreed on that.
Yep.
My winner is Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. He made some news this past week by taking a shot at the city of Decatur. And the city of Decatur is not honoring requests from Immigration Control and Enforcement and Homeland Security when it comes to some of these criminal, illegal immigrants, some of them gang members. And so he laid down a marker, even said there's going to, by November 1st, you better be in compliance with the feds. I got a winner, and I recommend it, the Taste of Atlanta Festival. It was last weekend in that old historic Fourth Ward Park. And if you hadn't been to the festival with all the great restaurant foods, that's one great component. But the second component is when I looked around there, and I know you know this, but 5 years ago there was nothing there. And then you saw condo constructions everywhere. It's a beautiful park now. So Pond City Market is across the street, exactly. And my loser is that misuse of those transportation funds that we talked about earlier. That was not right.
All right, Jeffrey, what do you have?
Well, Lou Degmar, the LaGrange police chief, who's the newly installed president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, made a clarion call to those police chiefs to acknowledge past wrongs and build trust in minority communities. This, after I think it was in January, he apologized for a 1940 lynching down there in LaGrange where he's police chief. So hats off to him. I think that he's saying all the right things and encouraging his colleagues and peers to do the same. Another winner has got to be Senator Jeff Flake. He gave just an incredible speech.
He flaked out.
It is a text worth reading. It's one of those moments in American statesmanship where we should all stand up and take notice, and I agree with him that anger and resentment are not a governing philosophy. And Chris Riley has got to be a winner. My loser my loser's Trump. The deficit grew another $80 billion in 2017 to $666 billion, proving once again that conservatism.
Now he's worried about deficits. Go ahead, Alexis.
Not worried about deficits for decades.
I want to congratulate the H.J. Russell Company. They are creating a new business center or area of concentration called Sports, Public Assembly, Convention, and Entertainment Venue Experiences for taking advantage of their participation in the construction of so many public venues over the last 25 years. So congratulations to them. And also I'm going to make Caesar Mitchell my winner. His birthday was this week. Happy birthday. Oh. And the Atlanta Daily World endorsed him for mayor, which was unbeknown to me because I'm no longer there, but it was great, and I agree. So I'm going to say that publicly. Let's vote for Caesar Mitchell for mayor.
Okay. I don't think I'll do anything political. Let's just do this. The Falcons, you remember them? It's a football team we have here. They're playing today at 1 o'clock on Fox, so you can just stay with the station all morning. We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.